Imagine a world built specifically for you. A world where you never have to work for a single meal. A world where there are no predators, no diseases, and no cold winters. In 1968, an American researcher decided to build this exact paradise. He placed 8 healthy mice inside it and shut the lid. 5 years later, every single mouse was dead. Yet not a single death was caused by hunger, poison, or disease. They had everything they needed to thrive, but they simply chose to stop living. This was Universe 25. It remains one of the most disturbing sociological experiments in human history. To understand why paradise bred absolute destruction, we have to look inside the cage. The man behind the cage was John Calhoun, a research psychologist at the National Institutes of Health. Calhoun was obsessed with a single question: what happens to a society when physical struggle is completely removed? For 20 years, he built smaller versions of this world. In every version, he saw the exact same warning signs. Universe 25 was designed to be his masterpiece. It was a 9-foot square metal enclosure. Inside, Calhoun stacked vertical apartments along the walls. Mush tunnels led to 16 feeding hoppers that never ran empty. Fresh water flowed constantly, and soft nesting paper was provided in every corner. Calhoun calculated the space could comfortably support 3,800 mice. He started with just 4 males and 4 females. For the first 100 days, the 8 founders behaved normally. They explored the tunnels, established territories, and began to breed. By day 104, the population began to double every 55 days. It was a golden age of rapid growth, the apartments filled with healthy litters, and resources remained entirely limitless. By day 315, over 600 mice lived in the enclosure. Ramps became crowded, and piles of mice slept in the nesting boxes. But Calhoun noticed a subtle shift in their behavior. Although the physical space was only partially filled, the social space was already running out. The mice were starting to crowd around only a few feeding stations, leaving others completely untouched. In nature, when a mouse population outgrows its territory, young mice leave. They emigrate to find new fields. But inside Universe 25, there was no escape. The walls were smooth metal. As new generations grew up, they found every social role already claimed by older mice. The dominant males held the apartments, and the females held the nests. The young males had nothing to defend and no role to fill. They began to withdraw. They stopped trying to claim territory or court females. These rejected males gathered in the center of the floor, forming quiet, listless pools of bodies. When attacked by aggressive peers, they did not fight back. They simply accepted the scars. As the social structure decayed, new behavioral pathologies emerged. While the rejected males lay listless on the floor, another group of males turned hyper-aggressive. They moved through the tunnels at high speeds, attacking others without provocation. They skipped the standard mouse courtship rituals entirely. Even when food was abundant, Calhoun observed the mice crowding compulsively around a single hopper. They refused to eat unless another mouse was present. Calhoun termed this the behavioral sink. It was a psychological anomaly where the simple presence of others became a compulsory trigger. The mice had lost the ability to function as individuals. The social loops that kept their society organized were breaking down. Soon, the decay reached the nurseries. Because the males on the floor had abandoned their social duties, they no longer protected the territories. The nesting areas became vulnerable to aggressive intruders. The mothers were forced to defend their pups alone while still nursing. The constant stress altered their maternal instincts. Their protective behavior turned into frantic aggression. Mothers began attacking their own young, dragging them out of the nests and leaving them on the floor. Some forgot their pups entirely. In the most crowded sections, mothers began cannibalizing their offspring. Fewer than 5% of the babies survived to adulthood. The physical cage was intact, but the social fabric was dead. The few pups that did survive grew up without learning how a normal society works. They had no models for courtship, territory defense, or parenting. The males of this generation never fought and never tried to mate. Calhoun called them the beautiful ones. They spent their entire lives eating, sleeping, and grooming themselves. Their fur remained clean and unscarred because they never interacted with anyone else. They walked through the crowded enclosure as if they were entirely alone. The females also retreated, living in the highest apartments and refusing to breed. They had simply opted out of the species. They lived in perfect comfort, but they were functionally extinct. On day 560, The population peaked at 2,200 mice. It would never go higher. The last successful birth in Universe 25 occurred on day 920. After that, the colony stopped reproducing entirely. The mice grew old, their joints stiffened, and their numbers dwindled. The beautiful ones continued to groom themselves in silence. The remaining females stayed hidden in the high corners. No new litters arrived to replace the dying generation. On May 23, 1973, the last surviving mouse in the paradise died. The colony had vanished, leaving behind empty apartments, full feeders, and absolute silence. When Calhoun published his findings, the public drew a simple conclusion: comfort kills. Religious groups, politicians, and urban planners warned that modern cities would suffer the same fate. But Calhoun's actual warning was much more precise. He argued that the mice died two deaths. The first was the death of the spirit, which occurred when they lost their social roles. The second was the physical death of the body, which followed years later. For a complex organism, a similar collapse is logical. If a society grows but fails to provide meaningful roles for its members, only alienation and decay can follow. The food was never the problem, the lack of purpose was. Yet Calhoun was not a doomer. He believed humans could escape this loop. Unlike mice, humans can expand into conceptual space. We can build new roles through art, science, and ideas. Calhoun called this ideational generativity. The solution to paradise is to keep creating new reasons to exist. The experiment remains a warning. If we remove all friction from our lives, we risk losing the very loops that keep us human. The mice did not have a choice in their paradise. We still do. What happens next to our society is up to us. If you want to decode more loops of human nature, subscribe. Tell us in the comments, do you see Universe 25 in our modern world?